And as they say, Sunday is here.
Sunday there. It is not coming anymore. It is here, and today, Sunday, we are called church, you know, God. Church, I call.
You know,
I saw the light, Lord, I saw the light.
Stick to Sunday scoops and painting.
Wait, so just stick to studying more music. Boy, if my friend, you treat me like a real
but all the while you
crofter.
tell me say me can't sing, so I might have to cry out now.
Me I try a thing, man. You know,
they tell me say me the Rasta church. So today we're keeping church today.
Well, we are keep church
up in this.
Yeah, but on a serious note, today, folks, if we're gonna take the time to look at gospel reggae. That's the right term, right, God?
Yes.
Gospel reggae. You know, it's amazing that for a country that has given so much to the music, not a lot is out there publicly on gospel reggae. And the truth is, gospel music is probably the second largest selling music genre, if you will, in the world. I think, as you said, next to country music is gospel, and certainly within the reggae genre, we're not too dusty at all.
And I'll tell you this, the reason why Richie, the newer artists, like Richie Stevens and those guys from the 80s, you know, and Junior Tucker, you can find the music, but the pioneers, like Otis Wright and Claudelle Clark and Adina Edwards. You can't find any, unless you had the records from back when they were pressed in the 70s and 60s. You're not going to find them, so, you know.
Yeah. But today we're going to pay most of our attention to Claudelle Clark. We want to probably mention one or two of the others, and I believe that there's enough material there to do several programs on this thing, especially if we focus on individual artists.
Powerhouses, Richard, the Grace Thrillers.
There you go.
And of course, the new age artists, and even like Tommy Cowan. What's her name?
Well, Tommy Cowan and Carleen Davis. There are a lot of
Judy Mowat.
Yeah, a lot of contemporary reggae artists segued into gospel. But today, let's open the door with the Miss Claudelle Clark, a woman who has been in the business for more than 50 years, and again, with probably outside of those people who are church-oriented, and you know, you may not be too familiar with her work. But she came up in the 60s and the 70s and has a slew of work, a body. I was surprised that even though she has a very minimal digital footprint, her work speaks for itself. And we got to share that.
God is a Mountain, today. That album, my mother used to play that almost every Sunday, along with the Skeeter Davis and the Jim Reeves We Thank Thee album and all of them things. So I am very, very familiar with Claudelle Clark. I can sing almost all her songs on the God is a Mountain.
Nobody with the singing today. Just
on the God is a Mountain cassette, because she had a cassette player then. Yeah, man.
But in those days, that's the only way you could get the music, God. You have your cassette and you know, thing. But
so she bought this cassette from one of them music store downtown. But
and ream it out every Sunday.
Brethren, me and my brother Luke know every single song from God is a Mountain. We can almost tell you what come next.
All right. Well, here what we're gonna do with today. We're gonna get started. She's with Claudelle Clark. I think you should give the listeners a taste
secular world
of absolutely what she started out with.
And she sang backup vocals on this song, which, let me tell you, this song is produced, and the main vocals on the song is none other than the pioneer Prince Buster, and Shaking Up Orange Street. And she started singing background vocals. Well, not started, she did other things too. But this is one of the recordings that I could find from her secular stint as an artist.
As you say, her secular career is right.
Yeah, man.
She was doing a lot of work doing the rounds in the different studios. This was Prince Buster when he opened up his own recording works after he left Coxsone. But prior to that, she did work at Coxsone, where she was in the company of people like Alton Ellis and,
Yep.
you know, the Wailers and so on.
Cook and
Right.
Sonics.
But she was doing mostly background vocals. And I guess in those days, you're trying to, you know, wet your foot in the industry.
You get paid good too, you can do 5 or 6 tunes a day, you can make up.
And you can make a good money. And I guess
if you get paid.
But without a doubt, her singing ability was never in question. And then, you know, but I tell you something to God, if you jump back even earlier than that, because this is as a young adult, you know, according to her, she started singing at around age 7 in the church, where she grew up, born in Kingston, but somehow she and her family seem to have moved around a lot. She started singing in church at about age 6 or 7, she said. And she did, you know, it was around, she was it at the New Testament Church of God in Yallas in St. Thomas. And she was singing along with her sisters, Millicent and Carol Clark. And, you know, I guess that's where she kind of honed the talent. But it's something to be said about the church music. And I think as we got more into the 60s and the 70s, where Jamaica's recorded music started to take shape, it was only a matter of time before the church started to look at the music as a way to expand its ministry. You know, because the music is, you know, reggae music is the thing, it's growing in popularity over those years. And people can, if you can't sing, you can again remember, God, most of our singers, you know, if you go all the way back, Toots, the whole of them,
Yes,
Desmond Decker, everybody,
Man.
they came through the church, you know. And so it was only a matter of time before the church people saw this as an opportunity to you know, use it to minister to their flock.
But
and
if
go ahead.
you look at the structure of gospel music, Richard, that early gospel music, realize that it has a Jamaican sound, but it's not reggae, and it's not rock and roll, it's not R&B. It is just an organic smorgasbord of mento, calypso, shuffle, ska, all mixed in. And I think with the introduction of the rhythm guitar, you know, when we look at early works of like Otis Wright and those guys, the sound that you used to hear, this gospel sound that we're talking about, the early gospel sound of the 70s, emanated from the Pocomania Church and in the Church of God churches.
Well,
you know.
that's an interesting point too, because the traditional church, the Catholic, Roman Catholic, Anglican, and Presbyterian,
right.
the Pentecostal type church was sort of a breakaway from that structured way of worshiping. I mean, the point you just made, you know, worshiping from a black Jamaican standpoint is, you know, go back to our, what we call the plantation heritage. You know, the Sunday is a day you think and you want to worship in a way that you can communicate with your flock, if you will.
And the Negro spirituals. And the same songs that used to be sung in regular churches, you know, we hybridize them and put our little thing on them, and that is how
put your taste is right. Another point I wanted to make, because we talked about our early days with this doing secular music, although couldn't find the music. She had one of our first recorded work would have been a song called 7 Days Make 1 Week. She did that at age 10. Can't find it either. She did it on the Treasure Eye label, where she sang with Stranger Cole. But it is as a gospel artist that she really catapulted. In 1968, she produced a couple of songs, Just As I Am, He Touched Me, I Saw the Light, After All, and as your favorite album there, the God Is a Mountain album.
Came out in the mid to late 70s.
1970s.
But she had an earlier recording, and I found that one, 1970. And that song is Closer Than a Brother. Yes, Closer Than a Brother. That's one of those choruses that you sing when church warming up in the morning and you need to get everybody into the attitude of worship. You sing those choruses.
Listen, man.
Sunday school, all of them things there.
I used to go to church.
Yeah, sweetie.
That?
I bet you.
Eh?
For sweetie. You get your offering money, you stop a shop and buy ice cement.
Yeah, man, you buy a...
The little old lady beside, they take out her little black purse.
Yeah, man, and she
full
squeeze
of
out to find a chop hands.
By the time the 1 cent, I give her 3 ice cement.
Yeah, but you see how far you got me. I talk about with me a little boy, a chop hands and penny
you,
up in it.
You grew up in Columbus and discovered Jamaica, so.
Yeah, you get to go to church. My mother used to kill me with church today. You go to church from 6 o'clock in the morning.
Till 6 o'clock in the
and
evening.
you come back at about 1 o'clock and you eat your dinner. And then you go Sunday school at about 3 o'clock in the evening till 5. And when you come back, you go night church. You know, I tell you, me have enough church during them time of my life.
That time of my life was the prayer meeting. You have to wake up 4:30 in the morning.
No, you're the prayer one with that.
5 o'clock. And then after the prayer meeting, now you go to school after that.
No, well, my mother on a Sunday. The Sunday was a regular church day. And then on top of that, used to listen to your radio program from RJR. We came into the house as a like a box radio on a wire. And so, yeah, one station in a clip, and I hit that. And you get all of the Skeeter Davis and, you know, the Pat Boone and the Jim Reeves and all of them. And so, you know, the Jamaica and Jamaican artists really took the thing to another level, because to move from a Pat Boone and a Jim Reeves and Skeeter Davis to starting to play Jamaican gospel music on radio it wasn't a simple feat, because you can imagine the kind of you know, obstacles that these artists had to overcome. Claudelle Clarke, in fact, talked about her own coming into the business. Once she established herself as a singer, a church music singer, she started to get some like a concert gigs, and she talked about being invited to sing at a concert, but when she come, she had to pay to come into the concert. You believe that, right? She had to pay her entrance fee, and then she come and she sing, and then take out back the entrance fee or and
make sure so she turn up.
Right. So, and then out of that now, she started to sing at church. But it was the early 70s and the Afro thing, and as a young girl, she in her Afro, and she turned up.
Church.
Yeah, man, she turn up for sing at the church choir with her Afro, and she said she run at the back lane and she had belt out some tune, and then the pastor must look up and see the Afro and draw her off at the stage and say, "Oh, she bring sin coming at the church." You know, how can you be coming here with this? You are unworthy to perform at the church with that kind of sinful hairstyle. That is where we are come from, right? That even though we promote this Afrocentric religion or approach to religion, where you provide a message in a language that the people think, you are still denying your own Afrocentrism. And, you know, but she said those experiences kind of honed her. You know, she realized that she was not a conformist, if you will.
And if you remember to Richie, on a Sunday in Jamaica, you know, if you ever hear one reggae music,
yeah, that is a sacrilege.
Down in the afternoon, probably on a jukebox at some sacrilegious bar.
Yeah,
because she not even shut no open on Sunday, a little window kind of open, and then you see a little man come up and say, "Yo, sell me a cup of coffee there, you know, so I want some rum in my
But this is this is how she kind of ventured into the music. She spoke heavily about Otis Wright, and you know, we can talk a little bit more about that. But what I think we'd love us to do is to touch on some of those early songs that she opened up with in that late 60s, early 70s period, and as we develop a discussion.
Well, I played Closer Than a Brother, which was one of the earliest recording I have of her gospel. The album that came out, God Is a Mountain, came out between 78 and 79. And you could only get that on record or cassette at the time. And I'm going to play the title track of the album. And these are all, I mean, they're so well done, but let's hit it. Not My Will. You heard God Is a Mountain, I Saw the Light, My God Is Real, Signs of the Times, and Not My Will. This was one of my mom's favorite songs.
Yeah,
unfortunately, she left us 37 years ago this month.
All right. Well, deepest condolences to you, Mr. Garth.
Adrian, them design them tune for your peer offering. Because when the music started playing a while ago, I reached in my pocket and realized that I'm not church.
Yeah, well, I am tempted to pass around the collection plate myself too. But,
we can ask Magic to put up a cash
Magic, you need to put up a QR code for the
so
stage.
That if you want to donate
yes,
to Save the Garth Fund,
we can put a QR code. But on a serious note, you know, religion has its place. And, you know, one of the best ways, and I think this is what Claudelle Clark recognized, the best way of ministering to people is through song, and especially in a manner and a fashion that people can identify. Again, I want to just step back to the development of reggae music. Basically provided an opportunity for an artist like Claudelle Clark. As she said, she followed the footsteps of Otis Wright, who was out there, you know, who is the real trailblazer in terms of gospel music. But her catalog, in my mind, is a lot richer. And she followed his footsteps, created the kind of gospel, a gospel sound that is delivered on a reggae threshold. Right.
Roots.
With a roots approach. And, of course, this was a way that the church now, the Pentecostal church, because let me tell you something, you know, God. When you go to a Pentecostal church...
Me know, man, I went to one. Church of God.
I am telling you, every Sunday, you're literally trembling in your shoes, you know, because when the pastor come and lego a blood and fire sermon, right? And you know, we're going to pick up that in a little bit when we come back because we're up on a break. But I'm going to tell you some blood and fire sermon experiences and some of the you know, how those songs help to drive the point home. Let's take a break. Yes, and we are back as we're walking down the road, the gospel road this Sunday on Sunday Scoops, and we're looking at the work of Claudelle Clark. Now, I made a point earlier. You went to church, and church, certainly for me, in the late 60s and 1970s, which is the period that Claudelle Clark was operating, was about scaring the daylights out of you, you know. Every Sunday, them have altar call, and I can tell you something. When the person crank up that blood and fire sermon, and you literally see the archangel them in your mind, with the big arm, them a blow. Gabriel stand up on one side, and yeah, man, and them have fired on some serious trumpet lyrics.
And the horsemen of
yeah,
the
man.
apocalypse.
I hear the man them say, when the day of whatever, and the trumpet shall sound, and the Son of Man shall rise, and me I said, Jesus from down at St. Elizabeth, and people out of fear, you know, you have some people that tremble and walk down towards the altar.
And then start playing a song, Richie, just as I am, without one plea.
It's a good time. You should have crank up that tune, because I'm telling you, this is where the thing is coming from. But to her point, the singing was for her a ministry. And as, you know, she drew her cue, she said, when she really started to look at recording these songs, she drew from the same man, Otis Wright. And of course, Otis Wright was, I mean, awesome in terms of the pull of his tune. I think you should have given the listeners a little taste of Otis Wright.
Otis Wright.
So we sort of provide a measure.
True gospel pioneer.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to start out with, I think, one of his most prolific recording. And remember, I told you about the sound from the church. The man I captured the church sound, Richie, on a level. but it soon be done. And you know, this song was done in 1966.
It soon be done.
So there you have it, folks.
That's the influence.
Influence,
yeah.
Otis Wright. And as I said before, he captured the essence of what you get on a Sunday morning when you go to a Pentecostal or one of those churches that didn't follow the norm of the Roman Catholicism or Anglican or Baptist or any one of the established.
It's a little more than that, though, God.
Formal.
I think, as you said, they were the whole idea was Jamaica people worship different. It's certainly, especially at a certain level. You know, the people want to go to church where you feel this heart-pumping, foot-stamping approach to religion. You make a whole heap of noise. The Bible says make a joyful noise unto the Bible says so.
Psalm 100, yeah, man.
Make a joyful noise unto the Lord. And the Pentecostal church represented provided that opportunity to make a joyful noise. And, over time, it just crossed into the music. As these guys are saying, and Claudelle make the point, she grew up and listened to Skeeter Davis and, Jim Reeves and all them American religious standard. And it was only a matter of time before, you cross that over into the music that was developing in Jamaica. In fact, if you look at a lot of that music we just played a while ago from Otis Wright, it was that fusion of ska turned into rock steady, because this was early 1960s, eh?
Yeah, mid 60s.
Right, and the recording industry was seeing the opportunities. Certainly, Sonia Pottinger had come into the business by that time.
Glory label, as you saw earlier from
she had a couple of them. High Note was another label. I think Claudelle Clark did a lot of music with her on the High Note label.
And her counterpart down the street, Mr. Dodd, had Tabernacle label.
Tabernacle, and it was published as a jam rec music system, but the label was Tabernacle, and he too recorded a fair amount of artists, but didn't put a lot of money in the marketing and the promotion. And I think the figuring was there was more money to be made in secular music. But I am now inclined to agree that starting a church is one thing. I mean, let's take the church thing serious. Come on. But if you're looking at music business, I'm curious as to why in Jamaica not enough attempts, certainly in those early days as the reggae developed, that we weren't putting enough behind this kind of music. It took a while. I remember in the late 1960s, early 70s, Henry Stennett had a program on a Sunday on RJR, where that was when I first realized, no, it wasn't Henry Stennett, it was a JBC radio program on a Sunday, where they were playing now more local gospel, Sunday afternoon. And Stennett had a program that was competing with Sunday Serenade. And they did, boy, you remember, oh, you so go like say, you're not so old, eh? But that was the broadcasting of gospel, Jamaican gospel music. So the music now that you're getting was starting to sound more like us.
I would venture to say that I would think one of the first groups to do a true reggae gospel song, and I think we're going to be featuring that group pretty soon, is the Grace Thrillers.
No, that is an event by itself. The whole Grace Thrillers, because they now took the religion, the religious ministry to a whole different level.
We're talking about influences of like a Skeeter Davis or a Jim Reeves. There's a song that Jim Reeves has on one of his albums, a title song, We Thank Thee. So let's hear Claudelle Clark doing that song.
I think she got baptized, she said, in 1968. And while she was, trying to forge her career, she was connected to the Pentecostal church, you know, as a young adult, and she is bringing or contributing to the church's ministry in song. But when she started to sing in this kind of reggae lilt, again it didn't find favor with the people who headed the church.
Fundamentalists.
Right. The pastor, she said, constantly them call her in a meeting and tell her, say she can't sing like that. And because them want to hear the same kind of Jim Reeves, Skeeter Davis kind of approach in the church. And in her mind, as she said, because she is one of the same young people who the church is trying to reach. And you want to reach people with the kind of messaging that they will identify with. And so, which is why she was developing this approach to her gospel singing. She said they gave her a hard time, and what she would do is every now and then she would take a gig on the outside, which was another problem with the church, because from her perspective, gospel singing is ministering to people. And she said the Bible said that we must go forth and spread the word. And, you know, whereas fair person want her to stay in a theme church and draw the crowd to theme church. And she said, and so because to them, and you're right, to them, the church is about raising money, you know. And so if she's going outside, she is basically, she mash up in money, you know.
How much church building fund are you aware of?
No, well, that, you know.
For the church build, don't have a church building fund and still can't finish building it.
Because the whole idea is to keep people wanting more. Now, mark you, I'm not by any means I'm certainly not an atheist, but certainly I'm not a fan of the established and traditional church. But I can appreciate, you know, the work she was doing and the kind of approach. She said that because of this conflict, it retarded her, and, you know, she was doing a lot of this on the stage Sunday morning singing. And then eventually she realized that, you know, people were demanding her music. She, you know, even though the church had tell her she can't go sing elsewhere, she would have still eased out, find a little concert somewhere out of town mostly. But she says the Pentecostal church grew in and around, in and across the island, and especially in the corporate area and Spanish Town. She found her way to those churches, and when the church have concert, this was a way she make her little money. And then eventually she started to go into the studio and record it. That album, as you had played earlier, right, this was one of the a compilation of a lot of that early work. But because again the business was so slow in terms of its development, because the church don't want her to record either, because again, yeah, take away the money from the church. So she decided, she realized that there was opportunities outside of Jamaica, and she started to travel and do tours overseas. She went to Canada, diaspora. Right, and within the Jamaican diaspora, and that's when she really started to soar. But I think what we want to do is to touch on some of that music that came out that period between the 1990s especially, where she really, you know, dived in, started doing a lot more recording, and produced a slew of albums that today has founded, you know, what we now see as a pretty substantial career. Garth?
Yeah, she has an album, Reggae Songs of Praise.
Hi there. If you enjoyed that clip, go on over to our website at yardmedia.com, where you can watch the entire broadcast at your leisure. And while you're there, why don't you check out our other reggae music features? And before you leave, pick up some of our Jamaican reggae merchandise, and hey, don't forget to tell your friends.